Good evening, everybody, and welcome. And thank you, Avinash, for doing such a wonderful job about explaining why we are here. So I'm just going to start now with the dream that we had for India and to say this is the purpose of this town hall. Do we really believe that an equal opportunity land is, firstly, do we all even agree that that's what we want? And secondly, how far along the way are we to achieving it today? And then if we believe it's a shared vision, what can we do then to move that dream along further?
Let me take the broader aspect of your question first and say that, when I was younger, I felt that the only way to get out of the problems we have is to take the inequality to the stage where there are structural changes, structural breaks. And that meant that you needed a revolution, and the revolution would come if there was inequality. Having lived for many, many years since then now, and seen what has happened, and in fact the inequality has increased, as you can see from all the indicators, and yet there hasn't been a revolution. And every time you look at a large factory, a large plant, a large new project, you worry about ecological sustainability and what it does to the environment. We need to worry about the social sustainability of this model of development. I think what we need to think about and really come up with clever, innovative solutions is what do we do and how, because our past methods have not worked. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kiran. And I would like to take that up with Professor Kundu now as an economist.
Inequality issues are not getting the due attention they deserve, and it is not only in terms of economic indicators, health, educational indicators, inequalities are very sharp. You feel happy that, look, literacy rate gaps are going down across gender, across regions, across social groups, but the moment you go above that, not access to basic primary health facility, but clinical testing. You look at the access to modern, education, which is giving access to the global market. You find inequalities are very, very sharp. So I think we should not be complacent by just looking at access to primary education, access to primary health facilities, access to labor market becoming somewhat more equal. But certainly you have to address the issues deeper. Look at the decent employment, decent access to education, and decent health facilities. Thank you.
Thank you so much. You think young India are going to do something to change this? Or are they as conservative as their parents?
The way forward for gender inequality and to address it is A, definitely aggressive intervention from the state in form of policy, legislation, perhaps reservation. I'm open to debate on that. 2, within women's groups networking to fight the battle for gender equality, because right now the fight is only on the fringes and it's not percolating down to the grassroots. 3, using these networks for an electoral platform. So maybe have an electoral platform that exclusively represents the interests of women. And lastly, I think my biggest hope for addressing gender inequality is definitely the youth. The youth, because they have the power to change this electorally and from a society perspective.
Pat, now we'll turn to you. You've heard some perspectives from Indians about how we look at our society. You've come here recently, but you've worked in 40 countries before us. How do you see things here? I mean, you see levels of inequality in other places, and then what are some of the causes that you see in other countries, and what could be possible solutions to address inequality?
I'm going to point the finger, and I think that in India, the cause of the problem we're discussing this evening is education, education, education. Education should be held accountable. People like me have to be held accountable for the failures. And part of the problem is lack of access to education, but also within the education system, the complexities there, the inequalities there.
Thank you for that. Is corporate India concerned about the wide and growing gap between the two Indias? What do you think you're doing to contribute to inclusive development, or you can say to closing the gap and inequality if you're...
I personally think that is really where the need for corporate India is to be involved in. How do we look at skills of people? How do we... Because only then will you have those people, I mean, it's not going to lead to job creation, but at least you'll have the right people skilled for the right jobs. The other issue, personally, that I feel companies have not spent enough of effort in is in the gender inequality in the workplace. the key thing I think for corporate houses in India going forward is there's going to be this magic 2% amount of net profit that we're supposed to start spending on corporate social responsibility.
Maybe now we turn to the civil society. Why do Indians have such a high tolerance for inequality?
I can see a gender difference. I can see a kind of a religious difference sometimes because of the kind of attire that we own or the kind of names. But the caste, I think it's the most talked about and it's the most invisible. I think what we first, I feel, need to realize is, let us first recognize where we are engaging in discrimination. And then, how is it that we need to make inclusion, very positive inclusion, possible?
Malvika, your organization says that its prime objective is women's empowerment. So it's an organization of women, for women, by women, I guess, through the promotion of entrepreneurship and managerial excellence. What do you do to achieve that?
Our role is basically to empower women, and it's a very broad spectrum when I'm talking about it. So if you go down to the root, the grassroots levels, so that's where we do again education, training, counseling, and seeing that how they can empower themselves, earn money, and be self-sufficient, and in this way they also get respect in the household. So what happens, your husband suddenly looks up to you, or children, and suddenly you get much more empowerment than when you are not working at all. So we try to train them at the grassroots levels, and I think around 3,000 to 4,000 people, we've made a difference in that area.
Thank you so much. You talk about recognition and appreciation. I think we now need to recognize and appreciate our audience who has been very patient.
What is it that the organizations can do to remove barriers for people of disadvantaged caste?
There is a tremendous amount of caste system which is invisibilized. Visibilize it. Once you visibilize it, what are the aspects of conscious discrimination? Ensure that how do we address these aspects in our day-to-day works and at the policy.
Would you want to also talk a little bit more on the accountability mechanisms that need to be set on the corporate sector?
I think as citizens, forget the corporate houses for the time being. We must make our governments, local, state, centre, accountable for delivery.
Education has been talked a lot, so somebody has already said what kind of education, but I would say, see, one of the historical errors which we have committed in this country is that continuing English as a medium of language.
I think there are many things we can do to improve education in India, and I'll try to be a little bit specific, and I think we can address it through a linguistic means. The British Council works in English, but it also works in mother tongues. For example, we're developing some leadership materials for Bihar and for teachers around India, but we just yesterday found that we've got a new project with the government in Maharashtra, and we will be using leadership material, but not through the medium of English. Okay. That's one. Could I just quickly say about English language as well?
I think we'll just close now with a round of applause for our panel and the audience.